name is Zach Kerstetter with KMG Academy in Boulder, Colorado, and today I want to talk about some of the brand new features that just came out in the most recent update of Serum 1.2.9. So if you're already a Serum user, there's a lot of really cool features in here that you might not have noticed that could make a huge difference in terms of what kind of sounds you're going to be getting out of using Serum. So let's take a look here. We have just our initialized preset for Serum. I'm going to go ahead and before we do anything else, switch and just grab a kind of weird wavetable here. Something that has some cool texture to it. And we're going to go ahead and grab our LFO1 and apply our LFO1 to our wavetable position. So that moves our wavetable position up and down like that. So the first major feature we're going to see is that we can start to modulate breakpoints within an LFO. So an LFO can move around as it's also modulating another destination, which is super, super cool. So let's take a look at some examples of how we can do this. The first and probably easiest way to do this is just to right click on a breakpoint within an LFO, and there's a modulate X for moving things left and right, and a modulate Y for moving things up and down. So say we want this to move up and down, we can pick this LFO bus, and then we can choose any one of these modulation sources, including things like our envelopes, our LFOs, our chaos, our macros, all kinds of stuff. So let's apply LFO2 to the Y-axis, and now you can see there's a little blue box here, and as I play a note, it's going to move up and down. And it's moving up and down at the rate and shape set within my LFO2. So if I start changing this, maybe I'll slow this down a little bit too. Like that. But if I want to change the amount, what I have to do is I have to go to the matrix page, and then here we have our LFO1 modulating our wavetable position, and then here we have LFO2 modulating the LFO bus 1. So if I want to change the range, I can move this up and down, and you can see this blue box area here also gets larger. I can also move this breakpoint around left and right, or up and down to change the position. So now it's going to move up and down, again, based off of the range set here. So we can make this really subtle or make it super obvious. So let's take a look at another way we could start to modulate this. Instead of right-clicking here and hitting modulate X, I could also just click and drag from another LFO or modulation source. So say I want LFO3 to modulate this on the X-axis, I can just click and drag, and I have the option for either X or Y. So if I click onto X, it's now moving it left and right. And you can see it kind of bouncing back and forth because it's moving up and down at one rate and one shape, and left and right at a different rate and different shape. This gives you tons and tons of options for really customizing how your modulation is going to be working. I've seen a lot of people do some really crazy, silly stuff with this, with having lots of things being modulated left and right, up and down, all over the place, at different speeds, just to get some really cool, really interesting sound design. So this is probably the biggest and most important feature in the new update, and I definitely look forward to seeing a lot of people do some really cool stuff with this. So with that in mind, let's try another example of what we could do with this LFO modulation. But before we do that, I want to point out a really quick, cool feature that they just added. Within your drop-down menu here, we can initialize LFOs and modulators. This is really cool. That way, if you're starting with a patch that you like, you can either come up with really quick variations on it by resetting the modulation and then redoing it. Or if you want to, if you go down a rabbit hole with lots of this LFO modulation and it ends up sounding not very good, you can just reset the modulation and then keep working on your patch and kind of restart from there. So that's what I'm going to do. It's going to reset all of my LFOs modulation, but it keeps the rest of my patch the way it is. So from here, let's try another example. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to add some breakpoints in here. Just do something like this. And let's go ahead and take this macro and just click and drag and apply this to the Y-axis of these breakpoints here, like that. So now, as I move this up and down while it's playing, I can start to basically kind of use this as a dry wet for different amounts of this LFO. Let's also apply this to our wavetable position first to make it work. So I can make it more subtle or less subtle. I could also do things where this macro affects the different breakpoints here at different amounts by going to my matrix and starting to play with the amounts here. So maybe it'll affect one of them more than the other. So as this is playing, I can get different amounts that way. This could be really useful for live performance if you want to be able to customize and change how something is playing as you're performing it. And you could, of course, MIDI map this. And then let's take macro 2 and apply this to the x-axis of both of these guys, just for fun. So now I can kind of customize it. Depending on how I just change those controls. So you can use macros, you can use LFOs, you can use envelopes. There's tons of ways you can customize this to create lots of different combinations of sounds. With that in mind, let's go ahead and initialize that one more time. And let's take a look at the other major features that I think are worth taking a look at here. So the next major feature you're going to see in the new version of Serum is that if I have a patch that I'm working on, I can just move my mouse to the very top left of the screen, and I can click and drag this onto an audio track, and then boom, it creates an audio file of the most recent note that I played. This is really, really cool, especially if you're into resampling, taking a sound and then adding some more effects to it and kind of recreating it with totally different sounds. This works perfect for that. So all you have to do is click and drag, and like I said, it takes the most recent note. So if I play a single note like that, and then I click and drag here, it's going to be that single note right there. It will include any modulation that's going on. So if I apply, say, like that right there, if I play, say, a different note, I will click and drag this over here, and it will include that. It will also be the length that I play that note. So if I play a note for a really long time, and then I click and drag, it will be that entire length. Keep in mind, however, this is monophonic. So even if I play like a chord, say if I play multiple notes at the same time, and I then move this over here, it's only going to be one note, I believe the most recent note. So yeah, so great for resampling, great for just kind of taking ideas, dragging them out. If you're doing different like sound effects or kind of like weird sound design, just taking individual hits and then just moving on, making new sounds, dragging them out, and basically creating a library full of like one-shot sounds could be really cool. So that's a really awesome feature. Definitely looking forward to using that more. The last major feature that I do want to talk about is that anytime you see a dry wet knob or a mix knob inside of Serum, it now also doubles as a volume knob. So the way this is going to work, say we try this on our filter here. If I have my filter frequency going on, I can use this as a dry wet knob. But if I click where it says mix, it switches to level. So it allows me to use it as a volume knob. Like that. And this is true pretty much anywhere where you're going to see dry wet or mix controls, including your effects. And this is really where it becomes useful. So if I have multiple effects going on here, I can click here and it switches from dry wet or mix control, which is going to control the amount of effect we're hearing, to a volume control. So this allows you to essentially do gain staging in the middle of your signal flow. So if you, for example, are using the distortion effect and you crank up the settings, it can get really loud and potentially be clipping. So what I can do here is click in here, start adjusting the levels to make sure I'm not clipping anywhere within my signal flow. So really, really handy. Like I said, pretty much anywhere you see a mix control, you just click on it, it turns into a volume control. So that's pretty much it. Those are the main features you're going to see that have been added to Serum. You might not have known about all of them. Be sure to check out the patch notes to see if there's anything that I might have missed or any cool features that you think could be useful. But those are the main ones you're going to be hopefully using and utilizing in your sound design and your workflow and your productions. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and keep an eye out for more videos from KMG coming real soon.